Chapter 71 Will Hogwarts ensure the safety of students? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron looked at Dumbledore, his kind eyes, stroked Abe's head, then sat up straight, chuckled and said, "I'm gonna pass, Headmaster, Professor Dumbledore, you're laying it on a bit thick. That dude in the black robe had no clue I was packing such heat, otherwise he wouldn't have bailed last night, so, basically, if you guys keep your traps shut, I'm golden." Dumbledore was taken aback, like he wasn't expecting such a quick and blunt rejection. Hagrid stood to the side, stone-faced. He was hoping Aaron would hand over the resurrection potion to Dumbledore for safekeeping. In his book, that was the only smart move, but he'd already stepped in it with Aaron a few times, and figured speaking up now might backfire. "Aaron," Snape said, barely holding back a smirk, "you might want to think this over. It's not gonna hurt you. But it ain't gonna help, either, right? Handing over a family heirloom, a lifesaver, to someone else for safekeeping? Professor, how dumb do you think I am?" Aaron shot back, "Let's be real here, I've been burned a few times lately, and I'm not exactly trusting folks left and right." Snape just stared, speechless. They were there as a precaution, to stop Voldemort from finding another way to come back, but asking Aaron to fork over his family's pride and joy was kinda messed up, plus, the potion was worth its weight in gold, and he and Dumbledore weren't exactly buddies. There was no trust between them. It was like handing a stranger your life savings. "I get your concerns," Dumbledore said, like he understood. "But I still think you should hang on to it." Aaron frowned. "Did I not make myself clear?" "No, you did, but there's always a what if, right? What if that guy in the black robe comes looking for you?" "Then somebody spilled the beans," Aaron interrupted, giving Hagrid the side eye. The big guy took a step back, feeling guilty as hell. Dumbledore was at a loss for words. He didn't expect this kid to be so cagey. "I'll have a talk with Hagrid. If you're still worried, I can put a special charm on him to make sure he doesn't blab about you." "Thanks, Headmaster, seriously, thanks a million, that's the best news I've heard in days. It's not that I don't like Hagrid, but he's got the secret-keeping skills of a goldfish. Give him a few beers, and he'll tell you everything." "Aaron, I'm really sorry about everything that's happened," Hagrid said, forcing a smile. "But I swear, I'm usually pretty reliable." "Yeah, well, everybody says that, but, you know, who knows?" Hagrid hung his head, feeling a mix of frustration, hurt, and anger. It stung, but he couldn't really argue. First, Harry and his buddies stole Aaron's Abe, which got them all detention. Then, they ignored his warnings during detention, almost getting themselves killed. And then, he barely left the Forbidden Forest before running to Dumbledore to spill the beans. Aaron probably thought he had no credibility at all. Ahem. Dumbledore coughed a few times, getting everyone's attention. He was worried Aaron was gonna rip Hagrid's heart out. "Let's get down to business. Aaron, don't think I'm giving you a hard time. It's just that you might not be as safe as you think. You might have already popped up on that black robe guy's radar." "Oh." Aaron grinned. "Sounds like you know this guy pretty well." Dumbledore paused. "It's just a hunch, but I can't rule it out. Your safety is really the school's responsibility. My dad actually suggested I go to Durmstrang last summer, before school even started. He said I'd be better looked after there, but I chose Hogwarts. Just 'cause I dig this place, its history, the vibe, and it's got the most powerful white wizard in the game, Albus Dumbledore. His rep speaks for itself." Aaron said, dead serious, with a face like he wanted to write "Dumbledore is my hero" on his forehead. But, deep down, he knew he was only half serious. "So, Professor, Hogwarts is gonna keep its students safe, right?" Dumbledore was floored. It felt like his heart skipped a beat for the first time in ages. The last time he felt like this was decades ago. How was he supposed to answer that? This 12-year-old was a real piece of work. If he said yes, Hogwarts would keep students safe, then he'd be too embarrassed to ask for the potion. If he didn't answer, no way. Hogwarts' rep would tank, unless it was a done deal. He, as headmaster, had to protect the school's image, plus, they were in his office, surrounded by portraits of past headmasters. If he said anything negative, they'd give him hell. It was an awful feeling, and it was really messing with a centenarian's mood. A year ago, he could have said absolutely without hesitation. But things were different now. There was a Dark Lord lurking in the shadows. Dumbledore didn't answer right away. Instead, he winked at Snape, hoping he could smooth things over, but Snape's face was all twitchy, and he didn't even notice the hint, and Hagrid was out of the question. If Aaron was just playing games, using half-truths to get out of a tight spot, Hagrid was being sincere, treating Aaron like a pal. In Hagrid's mind, Hogwarts was the best school, and Dumbledore was the most trustworthy guy ever. Of course Hogwarts guarantees the safety of its students, Dumbledore said seriously. Reputation first. Bingo, Aaron thought. But. Dumbledore paused, then gave a self-deprecating smile. Aaron, I'm not gonna BS you. Even I can only fight the enemy out in the open. Hogwarts is huge. I can't watch over everyone and cover all the bases. It's just not possible. There's nothing I can do about some dude in a black robe hiding in the shadows unless he shows himself, but I can promise you that, out of all the magic schools, Hogwarts is the best, and student safety is always our top priority. Aaron, damn, he had to give him credit. He saved face, and gave himself an out. That humble and calm tone proved he'd learned a thing or two in his 100+ years. Aaron, I'm still hoping you'll let me hold on to the resurrection potion for you. I'll give it back, safe and sound, over the holidays. Sorry if I'm being a pain in the butt, but I have my reasons, and I hope you can cut me some slack. If that black robe guy gets his hands on that potion, it could mean big trouble for Hogwarts, even the whole wizarding world. Aaron was silent for a minute, then sighed and pulled out the emerald green potion. Professor, thanks for not lying to me. If you hadn't given me a straight answer, there's no way I'd have taken this out. Dumbledore smiled and nodded, then looked at the resurrection potion. He was surprised, then relieved. He'd seen it all, and with Hagrid and Snape filling him in, he knew how powerful that potion was. That was close. If Hagrid hadn't shown up last night, and the Dark Lord had gotten his hands on this stuff, it would have been a disaster. It was even easier to use than the Sorcerer's Stone, and it cut out all that complicated elixir-making stuff. One step, and you're resurrected, good as new. Thank you for trusting me, Aaron. But I've got one little request, Aaron said. I think you know how valuable this potion is. It's a lifesaver, but if I hand it over, I'm losing my own safety net. What's on your mind? Dumbledore asked. If I can make it happen, I will. Hey, I'm serious here. Aaron put the resurrection potion on the desk. It's simple. I want the school to pay extra attention to my safety until the holidays. If you have to, you can order the professors to keep an eye on me. Otherwise, I'm not gonna feel safe. Well. Dumbledore glanced at the resurrection potion, worth at least as much as the Sorcerer's Stone, and said without hesitation, okay, you've got a deal. Chapter 72, Potions for Professors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, Headmaster. Actually, I figured the teachers at Hogwarts are pretty swamped, so no need to put everyone on alert. Dumbledore narrowed his eyes, thinking it over. What exactly are you suggesting? Aaron scratched his head, grinned, and held up 4 fingers. 4 professors should cover it: Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, Professor Sprout, and Professor Snape. Before break, I get one get-out-of-jail-free card with each of them, and they come running whenever I use it. That's a non-starter, and you know it, Dumbledore said, a mix of amusement and exasperation in his voice. I can let Professor Snape keep an eye on you, maybe throw Hagrid in the mix, but I can't just hand them all over. Those heads of house have their own students to look after, and they're already stretched thin as it is. Yanking them away at your whim would throw Hogwarts into total chaos. Seriously? Aaron hadn't actually expected Dumbledore to cave on his outrageous demands. Time to haggle. The real trick is landing where you expect to, but squeezing in a little bit extra is gravy. Okay, then those 3, Aaron conceded, bending one of the 4 fingers down. Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, and Professor Snape. Dumbledore just shook his head and smiled, saying nothing. Final offer, Aaron said, feigning annoyance. Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape, if you don't agree, I'm taking the potion back. If my safety can't be guaranteed, I can't just hand over a lifesaver like that. 2 is borderline acceptable, Dumbledore said, looking at Snape with a hint of resignation. You heard him, Severus. Loud and clear, Headmaster, Snape drawled, rolling his eyes at Aaron. You call, I'll be there, but you get one shot. Don't waste it. Aaron grinned sheepishly. I promise I won't bother you unless it's a real emergency. It better be. I'll have a word with Professor McGonagall, I reckon she owes me one. Dumbledore said, now are you satisfied? Good enough. Aaron said, standing up. Guess I'll be going then. Sure, go get some shut-eye. Aaron visibly relaxed at the dismissal, the whole thing was practically over. He scooped up Abe, who was currently drooling at the red bird, and headed for the door, but a few steps later, Dumbledore's voice stopped him. Mr. Gaius, your cat seems particularly interested in my pet. Aaron froze, his heart skipping a beat. He glanced back at Hagrid, who was frantically shaking his head and making zip-it motions with his fingers, clearly indicating that he hadn't said anything. Aaron breathed a small sigh of relief. You've got a good eye, Professor. That's why I bundled Abe up so snug, cute cat, right? Very cute, but my comment wasn't about his appearance. Dumbledore gave a knowing glance towards the red bird perched on the gilded branch. Fawkes, my pet, is a phoenix. This is the first time I've ever seen another animal drool over it. Aaron, crap. I am totally grounding Abe from treats when we get back. It's one thing to not control the drool, but drooling on a phoenix? Is he trying to eat it like some chicken dinner? That's a pretty huge appetite. Abe's behavior might have been shocking, but at this moment, the owner can only cover it up. Ahem. To be frank, Professor Dumbledore, Abe may not even be looking at the phoenix. Recently, he has become keen on collecting things, those gilded branches under Fawkes's feet. Would you consider selling them to me? Dumbledore's lips twitched, and he swiveled his head in a quick moment of panic to make sure his phoenix was still properly perched. He sighed and waved a hand, and the office door swung open. Go back and rest. Professor Snape, see Aaron out and come back. Yes. The two of them stepped out of the office, and Aaron let out a long breath. Glad that's over. Snape looked at him quizzically, his expression unusually complex. Before showing up here, Aaron's view of Dumbledore was, dusty old coot, but after meeting him, his attitude did a complete 180, and he seemed to totally idolize him. You're wasted not being on stage. Hey. I had to learn this skill a long time ago, say one thing to one person and another thing to another. Aaron said casually, and Dumbledore isn't that easy to fool. If I hadn't pushed for what I wanted, you think he would have just let me walk out of there? Dumbledore wouldn't do that, Snape scoffed. I've known him too many years, and I'm sure he would never harm a student. I didn't say he'd hurt me, but he's probably going to have me running back and forth to his office for a while. He'll probably pull some silly tricks to scare off the black-robed figure in the dark and make sure they don't dare to attack me. After all, the black-robed figure doesn't know that I have a potion that can restore him, and he won't risk getting on Dumbledore's radar. Aaron said, now that the potion is in his hands, I should be safe for a decent amount of time until the end of the semester. So you know that the headmaster wants your potion? What else? Was he going to invite me for tea and tell me about his youthful aspirations? The moment you said Dumbledore wanted to see me, I knew I couldn't hold on to that bottle of medicine. Going up against the principal isn't wise when you're at school. Since I couldn't keep it, I thought I might as well get something in return. I'd say the result is pretty good. What a little fox. Professor, even though you're a master of potions, I've dealt with people just as important as you. You soak up a few tricks by being around people like that. Aaron said flatly, besides, you think my little fox brain can hide anything from the old fox upstairs? Snape was taken aback and in a moment of silence, compared Aaron and Dumbledore in his mind. Without a doubt, Dumbledore was the clear victor. You're right, there is a gulf between you and him, in every way. I'll grant you that, but I'm still young, and I'll overtake him eventually, and... Aaron's eyes lit up, and he held up one finger with utter confidence. There's one thing I'm better at than him. Oh. You're joking, right? Snape's eyes widened, his first instinct being that this was impossible. Having been at Dumbledore's side for so long, he knew the power the White Wizard commanded all too well. You could easily say that as long as Voldemort wasn't in the picture, nobody could contend with Dumbledore. I'm serious, and I'm not the only one, Aaron said, dead serious. You should be better at it than him, too. Huh? Should I? I haven't figured out how I'm better than him. We're richer than him. Aaron said bluntly. Snape was stunned. This answer truly caught him off guard, but after reflecting upon it, that seemed to be the case. Is Dumbledore rich? Of course, he had money. He had stayed at Hogwarts for more than 30 years, had the highest salary in the school, and had several high-ranking part-time jobs. Under normal circumstances, Dumbledore's assets would be enough for him to squander for several lifetimes, but at the same time, he definitely has a lot of money to spend. All his wages alone are only enough for him to break even and save some pension. Even though he knew that he was better than Dumbledore, Snape still couldn't be happy. So what if you had money? You still work for others. By the way, Professor, something suddenly occurred to me. Aaron said with a hint of embarrassment, I did give you a present during the holidays, right? Have you determined what it does? Snape returned to his senses and took on a strange expression. You mean that bottle of mystery goo? That's right, Aaron said excitedly, eager to know what the holy dragon saliva does. I worked on it for a while, and that stuff actually works. Combined with some herbal medicines, you can create a magic potion that whets your appetite, which is very helpful for some anorexia patients. The corner of Aaron's mouth twitched slightly, but when he thought about Abe, a dragon who wasn't picky about food, ate delicious food, and could even eat phoenixes, he was convinced. After sending Aaron out through the gargoyle door, Snape headed back to the headmaster's office. Severus, I must congratulate you. Dumbledore said with a smile, you have a good student. Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, and Professor Sprout have all asked me to have him transferred somewhere else. After all, the Sorting Hat did say he'd fit into any house. They are out of their minds and want to steal people from me, Slytherin, and I don't agree with that, but Aaron is, of course, very good, with outstanding results in everything he does. You know, I'm not talking about grades. At his age, I wouldn't have had the nerve to negotiate with the principal. I think that might have something to do with his upbringing. Maybe. But you may not realize that he's much smarter than you think. He knows how to protect himself, how to mask his sharp edges, and how to get what he wants. He's not acting like a 12-year-old. Chapter 73. This invitation came unexpectedly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Headmaster, Snape said smoothly, isn't it a good thing for students to excel? Of course, Dumbledore replied instantly. As headmaster, I've always hoped Hogwarts students would be top-notch. But your student's a bit too mature. Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, Professor Sprout, and you, Severus. He chuckled. Frankly, I wasn't surprised he asked for such a high-powered group. I almost expected it. It's like haggling. You start high, hoping to meet somewhere in the middle. As long as everyone gets what they want, it's a win-win, but he specifically asked us not to tell anyone else. That's what's got me thinking. Doesn't seem that weird to me, Hagrid chuckled, patting his belly. Sounds like he didn't want to put people out. Maybe, Dumbledore said, stroking his beard, a glint in his eyes. Or maybe he's being cautious. What do you think, Severus? Snape paused, his face growing serious. You think he knows? Not necessarily. But he saw the man in black, saw him drinking unicorn blood to stay alive. Someone that clever had to have figured something out. Like, how did the man in black sneak into Hogwarts? What was his reason for being here? Is someone else at school helping him? No way. Aaron. Hagrid trailed off, he's only a first year. He couldn't think all that through. Ha. Hagrid, you can't deny some people are just naturally gifted, they're different, they stand out. They think better than the rest of us, they see things differently, one thing's clear now. Besides you, me, and the heads of houses, he suspects everyone else on staff. Dumbledore chuckled, shaking his head. I bet he's feeling pretty good about that deal he made. But his little game didn't fool me. Using the talents of 2 professors to temporarily eliminate another way for Voldemort to resurrect was a huge win. Snape's lips twitched. He finally understood why Aaron had seemed so calm when he left. It was a battle of wits, and neither of them was playing around. Severus, Dumbledore said suddenly, you need to guide this student. Don't let him go down that path, or it'll be another disaster. Snape's face darkened. You want me to spy on him? Dumbledore saw his reaction and sighed. Not spy. Just, keep a close eye on him. I failed to guide one student properly, and it led to tragedies I'll regret forever if I could. Enough, Professor Dumbledore, Snape interrupted, his voice tight. Aaron Gaius is my student. He'll choose his own path. I won't deliberately lead him anywhere. Besides, I'm not you, and he's not Voldemort. Easy, easy, Severus, that's not what I meant. Don't get the wrong idea. Fine. Snape said, fighting to control his anger. My apologies, Headmaster, if there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. After Snape left, Hagrid commented, never seen Snape that mad. What were you about to say? Nothing, really, Dumbledore shrugged. I was just hoping Aaron would end up in Gryffindor. Seems unlikely now. Inside the Slytherin common room, Aaron lay on his dorm bed, stroking his adorable holy dragon and checking his stats. Host, Aaron Gaius. Magic power, 1126, senior magician, barely self-sufficient, but still insignificant. Talent, rare, can be improved, magic power increases by 2 points daily. Items, moon drops, blessing potion, invisibility potion. Magic points, 778, Hogwarts check-in, increases by 10 points daily. Gone, just like I figured. Aaron saw the resurrection potion had disappeared from his inventory. He'd expected it, but it still felt like he'd lost something important, like a security blanket. He then checked Abe's stats. Pet, Abe. Race, dragon, holy, unawakened. Magic energy, 496, increases slightly daily, potential endless, but currently extremely weak. Innate ability, flight. Only 4 days until Abe's first evolution. That was the only thing he was looking forward to right now. Abe would still need investment to unlock his other innate skills, but at least he'd get bigger, not necessarily the typical 10 or 20 meters. Maybe something closer to a centaur, which would be the first step to becoming a war pet. System, how big will Abe be next level? Aaron asked, feeling anxious. 1 meter. Click. Click. Aaron blinked, and the corners of his mouth twitched. What's the point of 1 meter? That's barely taller than me. That I thought he'd be able to carry me after this, but I got my hopes up. Don't think like that, holy dragon evolution takes time. Time? You mean resources? Aaron scoffed. At the rate my magic points are increasing, it'll be forever before I can feed him enough to turn him into a giant dragon. But it's worth it, the system said seriously. The holy dragon may not get that much bigger, but his strength, speed, defense, energy, and flight speed will all increase significantly. Besides, you might get a taste of flying. Oh. Aaron perked up. Maybe things weren't so bad. He won't carry you, but he can still support you. A picture flashed in Aaron's mind. He's floating through the sky, white wings spread, looking down on the world like an angel. Then he turns around, and there's a tiny, embarrassed dragon hanging onto his back. Nah, forget it, Aaron said, shuddering. Unless it's life or death, I'm never doing that. Speaking of which, will there be any weird effects when he evolves? I remember it being pretty dramatic when he was born. No, the system said. Birth and growth are different. Birth is a new life beginning. Growth is natural. You're just speeding up the process, so don't get your hopes up. Oh, Aaron said, disappointed. He'd planned to let Abe evolve in the Forbidden Forest, but it looked like he could skip that. It might be for the best. Going into the Forbidden Forest meant dealing with Hagrid. He'd ticked him off recently, and even a guilty Hagrid might agree to go to the principal's office after Abe finished evolving. And then who knew if Dumbledore would want to keep Abe for a while, but skipping Hagrid and sneaking into the Forbidden Forest would be dangerous. The magical creatures and dark forces there might cut Hagrid some slack, but not anyone else. He could handle himself okay, but if he went too deep, he might not get out in one piece. The next day, Aaron woke up, stretched, and felt refreshed. He'd had a tough time, but it was over. The dangerous detention, the blood-sucking Voldemort, the unfathomable Dumbledore, the overprotective Rubius Hagrid, they wouldn't bother him anymore. He could just study and improve. At least he had some time to prepare before Voldemort tried to steal the Philosopher's Stone. He was wrong. Defense against the dark arts was taught by Professor Quirrell. Aaron considered himself a good student, but he couldn't concentrate on a single word in that class. Quirrell, possessed by Voldemort, kept staring at him, a sickly smile on his face. It made Aaron nervous, to avoid giving anything away that might cause Quirrell to break the rules, or worse, he pretended to pay attention. He even forced himself to smile back at the teacher, which was making his face stiff. After class, Aaron sighed in relief, picked up Abe, and started to leave. Wait, Quirrell stammered. Mr. Gaius? Could you wait a moment? I wanted to talk to you in my office. Aaron. Chapter 74. Who would study with eyes like these? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron stared at Professor Quirrell, who was stammering, and his heart pounded like a runaway train. This asterisk was how his fresh start was gonna go. He thought he could just coast through life, but nope, the crazy train had to pull up right on time. Quirrell asking him for something. No way, this was 99% Voldemort calling. He had to shut this down fast. He, a simple student, couldn't even imagine what the Dark Lord was capable of. Agreeing to this was basically walking into the lion's den. Mr. Gaius? Professor Quirrell called out softly. Could you spare a moment? Professor, I'm really sorry, Aaron said, trying to sound sincere. I promised Professor Snape I'd ask him for some help today. We agreed yesterday. Quirrell blinked. What about tomorrow? Can't do it tomorrow either. I'm meeting with Professor McGonagall about some advanced transfiguration. That's a set appointment. The day after tomorrow, then. Surely. Professor Quirrell was visibly struggling, practically begging. He couldn't believe Aaron was blowing him off like this. It was Defense Against the Dark Arts' turn to get some one-on-one time. Ugh. I don't think so. Aaron shook his head, laying it on thick. Professor Dumbledore wants to see me specifically, for some reason. Got to deal with that. Coincidence, I guess, that it's the day after tomorrow. Dumbledore, the headmaster. Professor Quirrell frowned. Aaron caught the flicker of fear in his eyes and felt a wave of relief. Good. Let him be scared. I have no clue why he wants to see me. Hagrid probably told him about something in the Forbidden Forest. Aaron glanced pointedly at Abe, his eyes all wide and worried. Quirrell seemed to relax a bit. Yeah, he knew Hagrid. Hagrid probably blabbed to Dumbledore that Aaron was raising some kind of magical critter. Big deal, sure. But it made sense that the headmaster would want to check it out. All right then. Well, I can't really compete with the headmaster, can I? But if you find any free time, you really must come see me. You have so much talent, just needs a little refinement. I'd love to mentor you personally. Really? Aaron said, all big-eyed and innocent. Don't worry, Professor, if I can, I definitely will. Good. You can head back now. Aaron nodded and left the classroom like nothing was up. His back was soaked in sweat, but he kept his cool. Didn't even let his breathing change. As soon as he rounded the corner, Aaron slumped against the wall, gasping for air. Nailed it. He was so stressed, but he had to give himself props for that performance. Dumbledore's name was like a magic shield. Professor Quirrell wouldn't be bothering him anytime soon, and just like he thought, as soon as the last student had cleared out of the defense against the dark arts classroom, Professor Quirrell slammed the door shut, and his face hardened. He was a completely different person from the timid professor they saw in class. Master, Aaron Gaius will be busy for a few days, so it seems we won't get a chance to meet. It doesn't matter. There will be another opportunity, a raspy voice said from the back of Professor Quirrell's head. This was just a passing fancy. I was curious to assess him, but this ghastly visage isn't fit to be seen. I wanted to gauge his talent up close. Master, Professor Quirrell hesitated. With all due respect, Dumbledore seems to be taking an interest in him. Should we? Bah! I know that old coot too well. He's always had a prejudice against Slytherin. Aaron's got more social smarts than anyone his age, and it might not be a bad thing for him to spend more time around the headmaster. When I'm back in charge, this connection might come in handy. You're wise, Master. Even so, Dumbledore will keep a closer eye on the boy. We'll have to put some plans on hold for now. If Aaron does come to you, teach him a spell or two and send him on his way until we get our hands on the Philosopher's Stone. We mustn't tip our hand. Yes, Master. After they finished talking, Professor Quirrell instantly transformed back into his sickly self and wandered out of the classroom, looking like he was still recovering from a serious illness. Early June, in the library, with only one day left before the final exam, Draco was hunched over a table, scribbling down notes as fast as he could. Piles of textbooks and notes were stacked in front of him. His cronies, Crabbe and Goyle, were cramming at another table. They hated studying, but these were the finals, and teachers and parents took them seriously. If they failed, their parents would flip out. Compared to their frantic studying, Aaron was totally chill. His desk held a single banned book, a dozing dragon plushie, and a glass of ice juice. Everyone else was reviewing, and he was just watching them review. It was pretty awesome. You can't do this to yourselves. The most important thing before an exam is relaxation. How do you expect to pass if you're all burnt out before it even starts? He's right, Crabbe chimed in. I think we're learning less this way. This is better than nothing. Draco snapped. Crabbe and Goyle only cared about studying because he made them. If it wasn't for him, those two would still be in bed, stuffing their faces with whatever they could find. So, what about tomorrow? Goyle asked. Look at them. Draco pointed to the Gryffindor trio a few tables over. With one brainiac and two slackers, Harry and Ron were actually studying harder than Crabbe and Goyle under Hermione's watchful eye. I can't lose to Granger, and you two can't lose to Potter and Weasley, got it? Boss, this. It's too easy, Crabbe corrected himself, catching Draco's glare. Okay, we can't compare to Granger, but Weasley and Potter. Their attitude during the year is public knowledge. Even if they're cramming now, they can't do as good as us. Don't be so sure, Aaron said with a shrug. Like they say, luck is a skill. Those two have always had ridiculous luck. You can't compete with that. Crabbe and Goyle exchanged a look and went back to their textbooks. Why are you so calm? Draco asked curiously. I know you're a good student, Aaron, but this is the final exam. How are you so calm? Even if you read banned books openly, isn't that juice going too far? How does Mrs. Pants let you get away with it? Ha! The librarian has certain permissions, and I have her approval. What? How did you manage that? Simple, don't bother other students and don't soil the books, and the most important thing is. What? Have a good relationship with the administrator. Aaron said mysteriously, I gave Mrs. Pants a gift at Christmas and Easter. I might be the only student at Hogwarts who cares about how difficult her job is. The juice is a reward. The world runs on favors. Draco's jaw dropped. Then he gave Aaron a thumbs up. You're amazing. Easy there, that's not something you say out loud. So, you don't need to review. Look into my eyes. Aaron pointed to his own eyes with a serious expression. Tell me, what do you see? Pretty eyes. Draco offered, trying to be helpful. Superficial. It is, but that's not the point. These are eyes with a photographic memory. Whoa. Draco's eyes widened. You're saying, you only need to read these books once? Pretty much. If this were a Muggle exam, I could just roll over and go back to sleep, but this is a wizard exam. Lots of spells and hand motions. Luckily, my magical talent is above average, so acing the test is no problem. Why can't I have that talent? Draco said enviously. Ask your parents. Aaron said proudly, I mean, if you've got this kind of brain, who needs textbooks? You do it because you have to review, I do it just for fun. Draco managed a smile and went back to his books. Some people were just born lucky, he might envy them, but he wasn't jealous. Especially since this lucky guy was one of his closest friends, he needed to focus on the exam, and Hermione Granger was his target. Even if it was a long shot, he had to try. Malfoy didn't lack courage. He was getting pumped up when he spotted Granger heading their way. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but after a double take, he realized it was really her. Granger, what are you doing here? You're interrupting my study session. You're not welcome here. I'm looking for him. Hermione turned to Aaron. Are you free? I need to talk to you about something. No time. Draco said instantly. Aaron doesn't want to talk to you either. Aaron shrugged and pointed to his book. I have to have fun, remember? And you want me to study? It's important. Hermione stressed. This is more important than the exam. Chapter 75 Scars with Early Warning Effect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron frowned. At this point, snagging the Philosopher's Stone was more important than any exam. Okay, I get it, I hope things aren't as bad as I think. What was that? Draco asked. Nothing. Aaron smiled and followed Hermione to an empty table in the corner. Let me guess what brings you crawling to me. Hagrid spilled the beans about getting past Fluffy, right? No, Hagrid's keeping it under wraps, which is why we're even bothering to study right now. Aaron scoffed. After dealing with the guy a few times, he knew just how tight-lipped the giant was. Not exactly Fort Knox, but a little better than a sieve. Hermione gave him a weird look, but thinking about the ridiculous stuff Hagrid did, she just sighed to herself. So, what do you need? It's about Harry. Hermione glanced around, making sure nobody was listening. She lowered her voice. His scar's been throbbing the past couple of days. We think it's a sign. We're guessing you know who's about to make a move. Oh. Really? Aaron perked up. He'd always figured the scar was just proof of Harry's identity, making him a celebrity in the magic world since he was a baby, but he hadn't expected it to be a danger alarm. Hermione nodded. I know you've always held a grudge against us, but this is important. If I wasn't desperate, I wouldn't bother you. I'm not that petty. I forgive you. Hermione managed a strained smile. Ever since the Abe incident, Aaron treated them like strangers. They'd pass each other without a word. Repairing things was going to be an uphill battle. Harry and Ron had been trying to apologize, but whenever they caught Aaron's cold stare, they'd get all guilty and look away. After a few tries, they seemed to get used to it, finally working up the nerve to say sorry. Aaron had no clue what Hermione was thinking. If he did, he'd probably find it hilarious. He was the one who got hurt. Why should he be the one to make amends? Where was the justice in that? Just staking out Hagrid, trying to pry info about Fluffy, isn't cutting it. Hermione said, "You know who's getting antsy, so." Aaron's heart skipped a beat. "You're not planning on going on the offensive, are you?" "No way." Hermione waved her hands. "I'm not crazy." "Then they're planning on going on the offensive. What were they drinking?" "That's insane." "Not really. They had the idea, but we don't have proof, and we can't just waltz in." Hermione explained, "They want to shift their focus from Hagrid to Snape." Aaron facepalmed. "Good grief," he sighed. "Seriously, that they're so clever, thinking about switching targets to gain a little initiative, but they are dumb. It is true, the target they chose is wrong, and they will probably be stupid and know nothing when Voldemort succeeds and runs away." "Aaron, I'm lost here. I don't know what to do. Going after Snape's a waste of time. Stick with Hagrid. He knows how to get past Fluffy." "That's huge." "I know, but Harry and Ron don't see it that way. They're convinced Snape's up to no good, and they think Hagrid's completely trustworthy." Aaron's mouth twitched. Hagrid. Reliable? That was the funniest thing he'd heard all year. Ugh. Aaron took a deep breath and looked at Hermione seriously. "We need to lower the odds of screwing this up. They want to keep an eye on Snape." "Fine. Tell them I'll help you watch Snape." "What? Are you kidding, MMPH? Keep it down, will you?" Aaron let go of Hermione's mouth. "This is a library, after all. Do you want everyone to know?" "Sorry." Hermione glanced around, relieved that nobody had noticed. "But Harry and Ron won't buy it. They think Snape's the professor you respect most, and that you wouldn't get involved with the Philosopher's Stone, let alone tell us." "That's fair, they're Gryffindor, and I'm Slytherin. Not just me, Snape's Slytherin, and you know who's Slytherin too." "Hermione. Don't go there." "Doesn't matter, just tell them I suspect Snape's connected to the guy in the black robes I saw in the Forbidden Forest." "Really? You think they'll believe that?" "Just make something up, like, on a dark and stormy night, some Slytherin wizard saw their favorite professor hand over a bottle of unicorn blood to the black-robed guy." Hermione hesitated. She knew that if she said this, Harry and Ron would instantly consider Aaron a fellow good guy, making everything easier, but then, when the truth came out, they'd realize they'd been played. She'd been through a trust crisis once, and she didn't want to go through it again. "I don't think that's a good idea." Hermione shook her head seriously. "You'll lose their trust for good." Aaron paused and sat quietly, thinking. He got what Hermione meant. He'd been a bit short-sighted. A simple lie would make his job easier, but it would trash his credibility. Not worth it. "So, we tell them the truth." "That's even worse," Hermione said with a wry smile. "It'll bruise their egos too much. They won't handle it." "Hold on, I mean tell them part of the truth, just play it down." Aaron looked at Hermione meaningfully. "Since I saved your life, you were worried Snape getting the Philosopher's Stone would be bad news for me. So, you told me your theory about the black robes, and you wanted me to watch out of respect for the professor. I decided to prove he's not a bad guy. While I'm at it, I'll keep an eye on Snape for you." "Is that even possible?" Hermione was skeptical. "Something feels off. It can be done. Every lie has flaws, but finding them is not easy. Moreover, the scar on Harry's head had begun to warn him that he was running out of time. At this time, he would not refuse help from others. If that doesn't work, just add more fuel and tell them that you told me a white lie. For example, on a dark and stormy night, 3 Gryffindor wizards happened to see a person who looked exactly like this. Naps man and a man in black robes. After this, I will gradually do some simple repair work and slowly add it to your plan." Hermione's eyes twitched. "I'll tell them both, then we just keep an eye on Hagrid." "Not necessarily." Aaron shook his head. "You think Hagrid's so reliable, but I think he's a disaster waiting to happen. I'm not knocking the guy. Hagrid's good at what he does, or Dumbledore wouldn't think so highly of him. But his secret-keeping skills, heh. You think he's tight-lipped, but to me, the bottle's sealed, but the whole thing's got holes in it. Anyone trying to get dirt out of Hagrid could do it in 5 minutes. No way. Trust me. Aaron said seriously. Hagrid's a good friend, but take my word for it, don't ever tell him anything you want kept quiet. Hermione nodded blankly, then her face turned serious. If you're right, focusing on Hagrid might not be so smart. Still better than nothing. If he does spill the beans about Fluffy, you'll be the first to know. Guess that's all we can do. Hermione said, looking glum, then she went to talk to Harry and Ron. Few minutes later, she was back, looking a little sheepish. Why are you back? Harry and Ron are really grateful for your help, but they're worried about you working alone. So, they asked me to help you. We can watch each other's backs. Aaron raised his eyebrows and glanced back. Harry was waving at him with a smile, obviously welcoming him to the team. Ron even gave him a nod of approval, glad he'd seen the light. That's not necessary. I know what Snape's like. They can spy on him all they want, I don't care. They don't see it that way. Hermione shrugged. It's just for show. It's not a big deal, and it'll make them feel better. Fine, whatever. Look at Hagrid, what I say. Aaron paused and looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see Dumbledore's office through it. Chapter 76. It's so late to know each other. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Harry and the others were barking up the wrong tree with Snape. They were wasting their time. They might as well have been looking at Hagrid. Sure, it might have a small effect, like narrowing the road a little. After all, that big guy Hagrid is simple, maybe he doesn't even realize he spilled the beans, but that doesn't mean it has no impact. Aaron, though, put himself in Voldemort's shoes and figured out a simpler way, focusing on Dumbledore. He didn't buy that the mighty Dark Lord couldn't handle a 3-headed dog. That was a joke. Voldemort could kill Fluffy easily enough, but it would cause a huge racket. The dog's roars would echo throughout the castle, an alarm that would draw powerful enemies. Things would get messy. If those enemies were just professors, he might escape, but if Dumbledore was around, forget it. So, Voldemort would have to squeeze the info on getting past Fluffy out of Hagrid. But even if he knew all the tricks, he probably wouldn't act right away, because any noise might attract Dumbledore's attention. The Philosopher's Stone would be useless then. A white wizard in his prime could wipe out a dying Dark Lord without breaking a sweat. For Voldemort, the only good time to strike was when Dumbledore left Hogwarts. Any other time was too risky, and in his weakened state, he couldn't take any chances. Luckily, Aaron had a way to find out where Dumbledore was by chatting with the professors under the guise of friendly curiosity. Otherwise, it would be tough. The next day, Hogwarts was serious. Final exams, the time that made good students excited and poor students sweat, were about to commence. The written tests were the worst, time-consuming and grueling. You had to answer questions in a stuffy classroom with a self-inking quilt. Aaron was the first to leave the exam room. With his photographic memory, he didn't have to think. He knew the answers instantly. Hermione and Draco handed in their papers at almost the same moment, glaring at each other like rival magicians about to duel. Ahem. Aaron coughed. All right, you two. That's the spirit. Competitive fire and all. But save it until after the exams. That they both huffed and turned away. I win, Malfoy. Not necessarily, Draco sneered. He knew Hermione was academically superior, but he wasn't about to let her get the upper hand before the results were out. After the written exams came the practicals. Students went to different classrooms for charms, potions, and transfiguration. They performed spells to make fruit dance, turned mice into boxes, and brewed potions following strict procedures. Professor Flitwick graded based on spell effectiveness, adding it to the written test score for the final charms grade. His exams were easygoing. He loved his students. Unless something disastrous happened, he gave high marks. And if you messed up, you could try again. Potions wasn't as hard as some thought. If you followed the steps, Potions Master Professor Snape graded based on the potion's quality, but Gryffindors got special attention. He put as much pressure on them as he could get away with. Harry and Ron, for example, or a nervous wreck under his gaze, Professor McGonagall was stricter. She checked for flaws and deducted points accordingly. If the box still had a rat's whisker or tail, you were lucky. You'd be skating by, but if half the box was still a mouse and it could still run around, you were toast. How'd it go? Aaron asked, holding Abe, as Draco and his goons came out of the history of magic exam. It was all right. Crabbe shook his head. Most of it wasn't too tough, but there were a few questions I couldn't answer. Didn't write a word, because I was worried Professor Binns would accuse me of messing with history. Same here, Goyle agreed. What a waste, Draco said regretfully. Only one question I couldn't nail, the reasons behind the elf rebellions. I was daydreaming during that lesson, because I have a house elf, and he is super submissive and helpful, so I just wasn't interested in their rebellions. It's probably just small time. Aaron's mouth twitched. Well, your opinion is pretty questionable, especially as the heir of a pure-blood family. What's the problem? The problem is you might not even be able to beat the house elf in your home. Aaron rolled his eyes. No way. Draco was unconvinced. I admit they're good at working and cleaning, but that's it. That's an illusion. House elves won't attack their masters, no matter how mistreated they are, but that doesn't mean they're weak. Some house elves are as strong as Aurors, and they won't hesitate to fight to the death. Draco swallowed nervously. The lowest creature in his house was more powerful than him. That was hard to swallow. Be a little nicer to the elves in your house, they're servants, but they're stronger than us fledgling wizards. How you treat them is your family's business. I don't care and it's not my place, but... Aaron paused, raising a pinky. Until you can beat him, treat him with some respect. Draco nodded blankly. I'll try. After the final exams, Hogwarts was much more relaxed, tension eased, and students started cheering, good grades or bad. They had a week of freedom before results and then a long summer vacation, but in this relaxed atmosphere, Aaron felt a storm brewing. Harry kept running to Hagrid, and asking if Snape had been acting weird. He was asking more often, from once every 2 days to once a day, and now several times a day. After talking enough times, Aaron inevitably guessed what was going on, so he showed his cards. The cards he showed were half true, half false, mostly reinforcing Harry's suspicion of Snape to push him along. The two sides shared information and concluded that Voldemort was in Hogwarts and someone, probably Professor Snape, was helping him steal the Philosopher's Stone. Hermione rolled her eyes. Harry and Ron wished they'd told Aaron sooner. Aaron faked regret about it. Harry, you're really starting to get on my nerves, Aaron said, watching Harry pace the Transmigration classroom. You're only the second person to annoy me so much after my uncle. It took him years to do that, but you did it in under 2 weeks. In a way, that's an accomplishment. I know, Harry said excitedly. I feel like something's wrong, and my forehead is burning. The scar has hurt before, but never as much as it does now. They're about to do something, and danger is coming. He looked deeply troubled, and had been waking up in the middle of the night. I suggest you go to Madame Pomfrey, Aaron mumbled. You're not feeling well. He was feeling drowsy. A blue light hit Harry, and he immediately closed his eyes, and laid straight down on a table. This. Ron stammered. What did you do to him? I just let him rest for a bit. I didn't put too much power into it, so don't worry. He'll wake up soon. Chapter 77 Talk Back. It's obviously telling the truth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Half an hour later, Harry blinked awake. Finally up, Ron said, sounding worried. You okay? Anything feel weird? Nah, I'm good, Harry said, then turned to Aaron, a little annoyed. Could you maybe give a guy a heads up next time? I wasn't ready for that. Definitely next time. Next time. There's going to be a next time. No promises. You were so worked up, you weren't listening to anything. Figured I had to do something to calm you down. Seems to have worked, though. Harry touched his scar. It didn't hurt as much. He felt a little sheepish. Sorry. It's Voldemort. If he comes back, I'm the first one in the line of fire. He looked at them. You guys get it? Hermione and Ron shook their heads. Voldemort was still just a name to them. Scary, sure, but they didn't think he'd just randomly target them. Aaron nodded, looking a bit out of place. He didn't have a lightning bolt on his forehead screaming about a Dark Lord, but he'd been face to face with Voldemort, or at least Voldemort-possessed Quirrell, more than once. Each time felt like a tightrope walk over a bottomless pit. Aaron, you get it, right? Totally. Don't forget, I went up against the guy in the black robe. It was terrifying. But we're safe here at Hogwarts. Hearing that, Harry felt a little better. He really needed someone who understood. I have a bad feeling. Voldemort's going to make a move soon. We're running out of time, we need a plan. Harry's voice was serious. Original plan stands. Ron and I keep an eye on Hagrid, make sure he doesn't spill anything. Aaron, you and Hermione watch Snape. Anything suspicious, let us know. But I think we need backup. Both teams take shifts watching the trapdoor. Snape, Voldemort, whoever, they gotta go through that door. But it's off limits. Hermione reminded him. And we can't just sit there 24/7. Someone will notice, and will blow our cover. I know, Harry said, sighing. We don't have any proof. This is the best we got. Hermione and Ron exchanged a look, then nodded reluctantly. Desperate times, desperate measures, with the plan set, they left the classroom one by one, but, from start to finish, it was really only 2.5 people putting in the work. Harry and Ron were the two. Harry's scar was a constant reminder, keeping him on edge. Ron was Harry's best friend, so naturally, he was there to support him. Hermione was the half. She wasn't convinced Snape was a bad guy. She figured she could pretend to spy while not actually doing anything, and keep a casual eye on the trapdoor. She was also often seen revising for her classes on the stairs, which made some students feel bad about themselves. Aaron, though, had completely bailed on the plan. He figured keeping tabs on Dumbledore was a better use of his time. Hagrid was unreliable, so why bother? Snape was a professor he respected, so he saw no point in watching him. As for the trapdoor, well, he strongly suspected Harry was just doing it to ease his own mind. They couldn't keep watch during the night, students weren't allowed to leave their dorms at night, but professors could. The Dark Lord wasn't going to waltz into Hogwarts and steal stuff in broad daylight, he'd do it under the cover of darkness. A few days later, Aaron strolled into Professor Snape's office like he owned the place. You again, Snape said, sounding exasperated. 9 o'clock sharp, every day. You could set your watch by you. Gotta fit it in. Got Professor McGonagall's office hours at 2. Vacation's almost here. Aren't you going home? Never stop learning, Professor. Every spell has its purpose. Imagine needing one and not knowing it, that's the real tragedy of a wizard. I'll give you that, but, don't you think you're here a little too often? Snape gestured dramatically at shelves overflowing with potion ingredients. I've spent years collecting those, and you've used up 1/10 of them in the last week. Aaron scratched his head, looking a little guilty. Then he said, confidently, it's not like I don't pay you back. Is it about the money? I'm not hurting for cash. I don't need to sell potion ingredients to pay the bills. I'll double it, Aaron offered smoothly. Snape blinked, his face twitching slightly. His voice was a little softer now. I told you, it's not about the money. I know. Just a student trying to be respectful. Professor, you should be happy to have a student like me. My potion-making success rate is over 70% these days. And you get all the finished products. You're practically making money off me. You have the nerve to say that? Snape's face darkened. Those ingredients could be used for high-level potions, but you're just practicing here. 70%, you say? Do you have any idea how much you're wasting? Like every potion you brew is perfect on the first try, Aaron muttered, but his voice was full of dissatisfaction. What was that? Nothing. Professor, quick question. Go on. Can you name me one person who's always successful at brewing potions? One famous potioneer who never messed up an ingredient in their life. Snape was silent. He'd been a student once, and he knew there were no shortcuts. Talent was important, but practice made perfect. But you're burning through rare ingredients like they're candy. It's not like I can't afford them. Ha! I admire your confidence, Snape sneered. You've been coming in here every day, using my supplies, my equipment. One potion a day, each one different. The simple ones are getting easy for you, which is impressive. You've got as much talent as me almost, but you have been squandering my supplies. So you better be rich. Just think about this carefully. Are you really rich? You've wasted materials worth around 300 galleons. Even Draco Malfoy wouldn't blow through the Malfoy fortune like that. I need to remind you that you're using your family's resources, not your own. They're mine, Aaron said calmly. I may be a pureblood, but my family isn't like those other old pureblood families. As the sole heir, I'm allowed to access the family vaults and use anything I want. Snape's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Why couldn't he have been so lucky as a kid? The world was against him and it wasn't fair. Humph. Using family money to pay for your mistakes isn't something to brag about. Aaron frowned a little, acting slightly embarrassed. Actually, I opened a small shop in Diagon Alley a few years ago. The family helps with buying supplies, but otherwise, I do everything myself. So, even without my family, I can make a few hundred galleons a month. Enough to get by. After a few years, my savings are barely in 5 figures. Snape. Get out. Professor, what do you mean? Aaron asked, sounding confused. You look down on business people. Don't blame me, Snape said, sounding annoyed. I've been teaching at Hogwarts for over 10 years, and you're the first student I've met who likes to talk back to his teacher. Is it fun? Just stating facts. Is that wrong? Oh, no, not at all, Snape said sarcastically. It just makes me think I might not be good enough to teach you. Aaron. Chapter 78. The Blessing Elixir can also blow on the bottle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Professor, I was just young and dumb, Aaron said, handing Snape a cup of tea with a sincere look. You need to chill out first. Snape raised an eyebrow, then accepted the tea, clearly pleased with Aaron's gesture. Talk about respect for your elders. This was it in action. So, Professor, could you teach me how to brew Felix Felicis this time? Snape choked, spitting out the tea he'd just sipped. Aaron, as if expecting this, had already sidestepped to avoid the spray. Absolutely not. Impossible, Snape snapped, his face serious. You've barely learned to crawl and you want to sprint. Actually, scratch that, you want to fly. Forget it. Get those ideas out of your head and learn to walk first. Life experience tells me you gotta be bold to get anywhere, Aaron said confidently. Besides, I'm a Slytherin. Isn't ambition kind of our thing? But the leap is too huge. Do you even realize how difficult it is to brew a batch of Felix Felicis? Even I can't guarantee a perfect success rate, and yours is currently hovering around 10%, tops. So, you won't guide me? Aaron pressed, unwilling to give up. Having tasted the magic of the potion, his desire for it had grown exponentially. Buying it? Forget it. It's priceless, and no one in their right mind would sell something that valuable. Asking his family. There are a few bottles in the vault, but he wasn't about to take that hit to his reputation, which left only brewing it himself. After all, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Sometimes I swear I want to rip your brain open just to see what makes you tick. Aaron immediately backed away. Hey, play nice. TCH. Brewing it myself, I'd have a decent shot at success. But with you involved, I'd be lucky to hit 50%, you've got the talent, sure, but you need way more practice. It's really that low? Trust me, it's low, Snape said dryly. And the ingredients for Felix Felicis are ridiculously rare. Even I don't have a full set on hand. Name, M. I'll get them, Aaron declared. Snape gave him a long, hard look, then rattled off the required ingredients: unicorn horns, salamander eggs, shells from the volcanic snake bird. Aaron scribbled the list down, his pen flying across the parchment. 30 seconds later, he stared at the lengthy list, a few dark lines creasing his forehead. Feeling confident? Snape asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Still think you can manage it, right? Aaron paused for a moment. Getting the ingredients won't be a problem, but... Hearing the first half of that sentence, Snape felt a flicker of hope. Over the years, he'd considered brewing a batch of Felix Felicis himself, just in case. He was a tightrope walker, after all, no one could see it, but he was always one step away from disaster, and luck played a different role for a person like him. For normal people, good luck was a good mood for the day, but for him, it could change his destiny. You can actually get all that stuff? Yep, most of it, anyway. Turns out we've got at least 3 sets in my family's vault. I never knew what it was all for, but I guess it's the Felix Felicis starter kit. Snape's mouth twitched. Money talks, but this was ridiculous. Some pureblood families wouldn't even have a single complete ingredient. If I had the ingredients, I guess I could consider brewing a batch, and if we succeed, I want a little reward, nothing crazy. Just 10%. Maybe it was his imagination, but Aaron thought he heard a note of desperation in Snape's voice. He thought for a second and shook his head. Professor, I don't think that will work. Fine, how about 0.5%? Or even a 20th? Heir. Professor, you've got it all wrong. If it's the finished product you want, I have a couple of large bottles at home, and if I broke them open, I could bathe in it for a day. Asterisk bang, star. Snape slid off his chair, momentarily forgetting his dignity. Do you even hear yourself? Okay, sure, there are people out there who can brew it. Some might even have a small stockpile, but bathing in it? That's just insane. I get that it sounds a little over the top, but it's true, Aaron said, shrugging. My dad says those lucky potions should only be used when absolutely necessary, though. Let's drop this. The ingredients first, Snape said, smoothing down his robes and regaining his composure. Right. It's not the finished product I want. It's the skill, but I can only afford to screw up 3 times, and you're saying that even with your help, my success rate is still less than 50%. So, I'm gonna hold off on it for now. I'll take another crack at it when my chances of success are up over 99%. Snape just stared. Was a period of time a little too abstract? He could get on board with 1.5 years, and 3 to 5 years, he could hang in there. Any more than that, and he would have to give up on this path. After all, he may not have that much time. Ahem. Don't be so down on yourself. With your talent, you could pull off your first attempt within 3 years. 3 years? Aaron looked shocked. I figured it'd take 1 year, tops. 1 year. Snape sputtered. Aaron, I clearly underestimated your ego, but don't get ahead of yourself. Felix Felicis takes at least half a year to brew. No mistakes allowed, especially during the key steps, so. Before Snape could finish, Aaron placed a small vial on the table. With this, we could probably skip the whole key steps thing. What? Snape stared at the vial, his eyes widening. Felix Felicis. Where did you get this? Doesn't matter. Let's just say I didn't buy it. Obviously you didn't buy it. I want to know if you'd be willing to sell it to me. Price is negotiable. Without a word, Aaron pocketed the vial. No way was this up for grabs. Not now, especially, there's also a dark devil in the school who is eyeing him. He no longer has the secret medicine to save his life. Luck cannot be given up. Snape's face fell. Professor, you're a potions master. Don't you have a stash of your own? Aaron asked. Long gone, I'm afraid. All or nothing kind of deal worked great, but the results were poor, Snape said glumly. Truthfully, I don't like relying on Felix Felicis. Trusting everything to luck feels unreliable, but I have a feeling I'm going to need a serious dose of luck in the near future, but we're not talking about this anymore. Don't even think about the blessing elixir. It's something you can't control now. It's better to keep it simple because you don't have enough time. How about a calming draft, then? Aaron suggested with a grin. Go see Madame Pomfrey, Snape said pointedly. I'm sure she has some on hand. Nah, that's different. My stuff is my stuff. Hers is for patience. Snape nodded, wordlessly setting up his cauldron and diving back into teaching his precocious student the art of perfect potion making. A few hours later, Snape handed Aaron a vial of calming draught. Aaron politely refused. We agreed, the finished product is yours. Take it. Consider it a reward from teacher to student, Snape said. Just keep in mind that this is about your current level, and this potion is not the best quality. Aaron grinned sheepishly. Hey, it's my first time brewing it. I'm just happy I didn't blow anything up. If that's your attitude, your Felix Felicis brewing will be delayed a little longer, Snape said. We'll see. Aaron was still feeling confident. As a cheating person, it would be a failure if he couldn't create even a few miracles. Oh, Professor, Aaron said, turning back before he left the office. Is Professor Dumbledore still at school? I thought you forgot about that. Is it interesting to ask this every day? What can I say? I like knowing I'm safe. Snape rolled his eyes. Well, your timing's impeccable. He got a letter from the ministry. Some urgent business came up, he left this morning. Won't be back until tomorrow afternoon, at the earliest. Aaron let out a slow breath, betraying nothing. He just rubbed his forehead. The storm was coming. But what is supposed to come will come sooner or later. Chapter 79 Hagrid is indeed unreliable. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After leaving Snape's office, Aaron headed straight for the Forbidden Forest. Sure enough, Harry and Ron were there. Hagrid looked confused as they entered his hut. He was looking a little stressed lately. I'm saying it again, I didn't tell anyone how to get past Fluffy. That's good, Ron said, grinning, takes a load off. Hagrid, you gotta keep that attitude. No matter who asks, no matter how they ask, don't tell anyone anything. It's not your fault, Hagrid said, rolling his eyes at Harry. Besides me and Dumbledore, I haven't told a soul. Not even the professors. Not necessarily. Aaron stepped forward, staring Hagrid down. Hagrid suddenly felt guilty, something he didn't even feel around Dumbledore, but Aaron was different. His conscience had bothered him more than once, especially when Aaron was hanging out with a magical animal he had always wanted to study. Got something on my face? No, but, did you actually tell someone how to get past Fluffy? Seriously, no, Ron chimed in. Harry and I remind him every day. We practically have to stop him from drinking, just in case. Hagrid's face darkened, and he glared at Ron. You little sneak. Hang in there. Just gotta tough it out until the Sorcerer's Stone is completely safe. Then you can get plastered. Optimistic, but the situation isn't that great. What do you mean? Harry's heart skipped a beat, and the scar on his forehead felt like it was on fire. It was worse than ever before, and he winced in pain. You feel it? Aaron asked knowingly. Dumbledore's left Hogwarts and won't be back until at least tomorrow afternoon. Which means the school's defenses are at their weakest. If you were Voldemort, what would you do? It's an opportunity he can't miss, Harry said, trying to stay calm. He'll make a move any time before Dumbledore gets back. And Snape. Professor Snape's fine in his office, Aaron said, exasperated. You should be more concerned about other things. Harry nodded, turning to Hagrid with a worried look. Hagrid, think really hard. Are you sure you didn't tell anyone how to get past Fluffy? How many times do I have to say it? No. No. Okay. Hope I'm just worrying for nothing. Aaron couldn't take it anymore. Asking so directly clearly wasn't going to work. Hagrid, since the Philosopher's Stone arrived at Hogwarts, have any strangers come to see you? Harry and Ron's hearts sank. They had finally realized what they had overlooked. They hadn't known about Nicholas Flamel until they'd been at school for a while, and they hadn't known there was a Philosopher's Stone either. Voldemort probably tried to trick Hagrid after the stone arrived. He may have already learned how to get past Fluffy. Still, they held on to a sliver of hope. After all, they thought Hagrid was reliable. Well. Hagrid hesitated. Not at school, but sometimes when I'm out drinking, I run into people I don't know. Hagrid, did anyone ask you about Hogwarts when you were drinking? Maybe I mentioned it. Hagrid said casually. I go to the same bar all the time, so people know who I am. So what? Strangers, it's about strangers, Aaron reminded him. Preferably shady strangers, the kind who look like they're up to no good. Hagrid frowned, thinking hard. There was this one guy all wrapped up. Couldn't even see his face, he was so bundled up. But he was a real nice fella. Kept buying me drinks. Aaron looked at Harry with sympathy, then handed him a potion he had just prepared. Drink this. What is it? A tranquilizer. Ron can have a few sips if he needs to. Can't hurt right now. Ron gulped, waving his hands. I don't need it. Harry gave a wry smile, took the potion, and downed it in one gulp. He also felt like he needed to calm down, or Hagrid might actually have a stroke. Aaron continued, and then what? He just bought you a drink. Can't remember much after that. Oh yeah, noble loss to me. Hagrid looked excited and proud. I've always wanted a dragon, and he had a dragon egg. Yes. Harry gritted his teeth. Now that I think about it, this was definitely planned. Harry, you can't think everyone's a bad guy, Hagrid said, patting him on the shoulder. He wasn't a bad guy, I swear. He wanted to make sure I knew how to handle dragons before handing Norbert over. Dragons can be pretty destructive, you know. I told him I could handle Fluffy, no problem. So a dragon was no big deal. Harry took a deep breath, easily calming himself under the influence of the tranquilizer. Was he very interested in Fluffy? Of course. Three-headed dogs aren't exactly a common sight, even for wizards. So, I told him the trick to taming a wild beast is to know how to quiet it. Just like Fluffy. Play him some music, and he falls right to sleep. Hagrid's eyes widened. I shouldn't have told you that. Yeah. And it's really hilarious that you told a suspicious stranger, Aaron said, putting his head in his hands. I knew you were unreliable. Besides, I don't agree with your beast-taming tips, because some beasts might not like music. For example, if I asked Abe to choose between music and chicken legs, he'd take the chicken in a heartbeat. Doesn't matter now. Harry stood up suddenly. We have to go to Professor McGonagall. She's the only one who can help us. Ron nodded, running out with Harry, but halfway there, he turned around. Aaron, aren't you coming with us? You go on ahead. I'll head straight to the trapdoor. Without any proof, there's no telling if Professor McGonagall will believe you. Ron blinked, said nothing, and continued after Harry. After they left, Aaron looked at Hagrid playfully. You know what you did wrong, right? I know, Hagrid said, looking miserable. I'll go with you to find Professor McGonagall. No need. Aaron patted the giant's broad shoulder. I can convince Professor McGonagall. As for you, shouldn't there be a way to notify Dumbledore? Well. Doesn't matter if you don't. He went to the Ministry of Magic in London. He's been gone for hours. You're faster than an owl, so try to catch him halfway. No, we all need that crazy wizard back here ASAP, okay? Understood. Hagrid nodded solemnly, pulling his umbrella from under the table. A few minutes later, a roar echoed outside the hut, and a red motorcycle shot into the sky. Aaron watched Hagrid disappear into the clouds, sighed, and started toward the castle. His destination was the trapdoor. No matter the time, that door was always the point of interest. Compared to Harry and Ron, he was much calmer and didn't think Voldemort would do anything during the day. The best time to steal the stone was in the dead of night, but that was something that could only be used once. Just in case, he had to see it with his own eyes to be sure. Third floor corridor, Hermione stood holding a stack of books, pretending to study. But her eyes kept darting up, worried that someone would sneak into the fourth floor corridor while she wasn't looking. You look like that, you're just advertising that you're hiding something. Aaron's voice suddenly came from behind, making Hermione jump. What are you doing here? Something came up. I think I need to go in and take a look. No. Nobody's here today. Besides, there's a three-headed dog in there. It's terrifying. Seeing is believing. Standing guard here might not be enough, Aaron said pointedly. Walking up the steps, Hermione didn't have time to stop him and ended up following him. A few minutes later, they arrived at a door. Alohomora, a lock-picking spell flew out, and the keyhole clicked open. Aaron took a deep breath and opened the door. As soon as he walked in, he saw a massive black three-headed dog that took up almost half the room, slowly opening its eyes. Oh my gosh! It's enormous. Way bigger than I imagined. Roar! Abe roared unhappily. Of course, Aaron said, patting Abe's dragon head. You'll be bigger than him someday. Chapter 80 Can't even get through the door and still want to be the first. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mau Mau stood up, its yellowish eyes fixed on the two wizards. Drool dripped from its three massive, dog-like mouths. A foul stench filled the room with each breath it took. Aaron, I think we need to get out of here, Hermione whispered nervously. Agreed. Aaron began to backpedal. He was less than 3 feet from the door, but it felt like the most dangerous distance imaginable. Woof. 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 The moment he finished speaking, Mau Mau unleashed a deafening roar. Boom. Before it could bite, they yanked the door shut, blocking the giant dog's head. That was a rush. Aaron breathed a sigh of relief. I have to hand it to Hagrid. He actually managed to tame a monster like that. A rush? Hermione was furious. I should have stopped you. We almost got killed. Getting chomped on by a dog would be the biggest joke in Hogwarts history. Sorry. Aaron grinned sheepishly, realizing he'd been a little reckless. He knew how to calm Mau Mau down, but he'd come unprepared. Now, care to explain why you went in there in the first place? Dumbledore's left school, Aaron said. Which means Hogwarts isn't as safe as you think. You know who could try to get past the trapdoor any minute. Hermione's eyes widened. This is bad. Do Harry and Ron know? I told them, 10 minutes ago. But even worse, Hagrid blabbed about Fluffy to a stranger right after school started. What? Hermione panicked. So, you know who's ready to go and is just waiting to make his move? Yep. He'll definitely strike before Dumbledore gets back. Just then, Harry and Ron came rushing up, both panting and looking grim. TSK, 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 Aaron clucked. Let me guess, Professor McGonagall didn't believe you, right? No, She didn't, Harry said, crestfallen. She not only didn't believe us, but she also chewed us out. Thanks for that calming potion, or I might have talked back. You're welcome. But honestly, if I were her, I wouldn't believe you either. I might even dock points. First off, the Philosopher's Stone is a school secret. How'd you guys find out? Secondly, how do you know someone's going to steal it? And third, it's heavily guarded, every professor has designed some kind of protection for it. We can't just take your word for it and have a professor who's already swamped with work go check it out. Why not just dismantle everything? Besides, even Professor McGonagall probably doesn't know how to bypass all the protections. And that three-headed dog guarding the trapdoor isn't exactly a walk in the park. You've been badgering Hagrid all semester, isn't it possible he let something slip? But, if the professors won't help us, who will? Harry said, worried. There's always a way. Aaron shrugged. At least the trapdoor is still safe for now. We've got some time before you know who makes his move. Yeah, we've got time. Harry's eyes lit up. We just need to get to the Sorcerer's Stone before Voldemort does. Pfft. Aaron snorted, then noticed the looks on the three Gryffindors' faces. Ahem. Sorry, force of habit. I've had training. I don't laugh unless I really can't help it. Ha ha ha. Aaron, Hermione said, tugging on his sleeve, tone it down a notch. Is there something wrong with my plan? Harry asked, annoyed. No, not at all, Aaron said, his expression turning serious. It's just so boneheaded, it's hilarious. What's that supposed to mean? Ron challenged. You better explain yourself. Ha. So there's more than one dim bulb. Aaron rolled his eyes, then pointed at the wooden door. Go ahead, go in. I won't stop you. No way, Fluffy'll rip us to shreds, Hermione said quickly. Exactly my point. You can't even get past the trapdoor, and you think you're going to snag the Philosopher's Stone before you know who? I admire your courage, but don't say you know me. It'll make me look stupid. That three-headed dog isn't a problem. Some music will calm him down. And what music do you have? Aaron asked teasingly. Ron stammered, we haven't had time to get anything yet. Well, there you go. Going in without any prep is suicide. Unless you're planning on singing a lullaby to a three-headed dog. Don't be ridiculous, it'll just get you killed faster. And... Aaron paused, turning serious, even if you bring music, it might not work. Fluffy's just the doorman. There's a second level, a third level, probably a million levels after that. You really think you can get through all the defenses the professors have set up? This. Harry looked frustrated and helpless. The scar on his forehead burned again. Hiss. Harry? Ron asked, worried. I'm fine, Harry said, rubbing his scar. But we really don't have much time. We've got to figure out a way to stop Voldemort, and fast. Aaron hesitated, then said, my advice? Stay out of it. This is way above your pay grade. I know, but it's better than just sitting here waiting to die. Voldemort's not going to let me go. Either I stop him, or I die a little later. I don't want to die, and I'm not about to kiss the Dark Lord's ring, so I don't see another choice. If you trust me, Aaron said, trying to reassure him, I can stop you know who. You? Harry didn't believe him, and neither did Hermione or Ron. How are you going to stop him? Harry asked. Don't worry about it. Trust me, I've got this. Just leave everything to me. Aaron acted confident. He'd been waiting for this since he accepted the system's mission. Harry and the others were totally unprepared, but he had a plan and was ready to go it alone. If the mission didn't require him to put in extra effort when dealing with Voldemort, he wouldn't mind keeping his head down and letting someone else take the lead. How sure are you? Harry pressed. Conservative estimate. About 60%. Aaron downplayed his chances slightly. He was confident he could foil Voldemort's plan, but killing him might be tricky. After all, he was the Dark Lord. Who knew what tricks he had up his sleeve? Only 60%? Ron asked, his eyes wide. He clearly wasn't impressed with those odds. Not good enough, huh? You got a better idea. Ron fell silent. He knew his limits. If it were him, he wouldn't even have a 10% chance. He'd be toast in a heartbeat. That's too risky, Hermione said, shaking her head. She looked at Aaron. What's your plan? The plan is, classified. Just trust me. You have to trust me. Aaron said, then headed out of the corridor. After Aaron left, the three of them exchanged glances. I think Aaron seems pretty confident, so maybe. Ron trailed off, trusting that Harry and Hermione understood his point. No, Hermione said immediately. I don't think we can leave it to him, Harry said with a sigh. I'm sticking to our original plan. We're getting that Philosopher's Stone before you know who does. Back in the common room, the three huddled around a table. On it sat an ordinary flute, capable of lulling Fluffy to sleep. Harry, what are we going to do? Hermione asked. We have no idea what's beyond that trapdoor. Then we have to try. We'll do everything we can. We'll go tonight, after everyone's asleep. Tonight? Ron asked. Since we don't know what's behind that door, why not go sooner? We need to prepare, Hermione said, exasperated. We have to at least rest up. Otherwise, we'll be too tired to get halfway through. Grumble. Ron's stomach growled at that exact moment. He said sheepishly, I was in such a rush earlier, I didn't have time to eat lunch. But, you know, that just proves your point. Ha! Hermione rolled her eyes. I need to brush up on all the spells I've learned. Maybe they'll come in handy. And the invisibility cloak, Harry reminded them. We can't sneak around at night without it.